So then the question goes to like the second side of it, which is like the long running rumor and like obsession of Apple watches and Disney watches is like, would Apple buy the whole hog?
Yeah.
Or at least one, maybe one that had actually lost ESPN altogether on the terrestrial networks. So it's just, in that case, would be like the parks, the IP, the film studios, the content, essentially.
My vibe is that Apple don't have that much appetite for dealing with something like theme parks.
No, that's the thing that immediately gives me huge pause. It's a huge part of like the Disney business.
Yeah. As I said, it's like 2/3 of their business.
And it's not even just that. Like, consider the parks on one side, but also like all the merchandising stuff that Disney does. Yeah. I know they're kind of separate, but I feel like they sort of live in the same realm. It's like the real world stuff, like all their retail selling like Moana dolls.
Yeah, as a profit center, right, the business model is put out these huge blockbuster pieces of content and still obviously try and make them make a profit, but they're able to pump so much more money into them because and the actual assets they go for are these like long running shows or like absolutely massive blockbusters because you're going to make it back on merchandise and parks. Like you can invest so much more in the content because you have these other sources of
because that's
revenue.
The Disney playbook is literally you have IP and they've spent a lot of money on accumulating IP over the past decade and a half. You know, the two big ones are that they bought Marvel, they bought LucasArts, and then they had Star Wars.
Yeah,
and obviously you can argue forever about how well they've handled having those IP or whatever. But the whole idea was like, if we buy Star Wars, then we're going to release a whole bunch of Star Wars movies and TV shows that make billions and billions of dollars. We'll be able to pick up selling like the character toys, like your Lego Star Wars and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, license it to computer games.
Yeah, exactly. Make video games, make whatever. And then we're going to build like the Star Wars experience that's real at one of our parks.
Yeah.
You've already paid for your ticket. You've already played the Star Wars video games. You've already bought all this sort of stuff. Then the final frontier is for you to go and see the Star Wars stuff they have at Disney World or Disneyland.
Yeah, and pay extra to skip the line and then pay extra more to like put the glasses on and then pay more to buy more merchandise that you can only buy at Disneyland. And blah,
or you
blah,
stay at the Star Wars hotel, which they just closed actually because it wasn't living up to expectations.
Yeah, but buying the Star Wars cocktail and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, exactly. And they just do that for everything. And they do it in reverse as well, which is they're now, well, it's not just now, they've been doing it since Pirates of the Caribbean, basically, but like making movies and movie IP that's based on their rides.
Yeah.
You know, there's a Space Mountain ride movie coming out at the moment.
Yeah.
And like Haunted Mansion. And they make movies based on their rides. There's obviously no one else that can get away with doing that.
Yeah.
But
that whole world of like profit is just not, I don't really see the link with Apple here.
No. I mean, when people talk about Apple acquiring it, the first thing they go to the mind, which kind of makes sense in that, great, they can buy the library and the IP. Then all of a sudden, the only place you can watch Marvel, Star Wars, Moana, all the Pixar stuff, any Disney
Frozen,
and then all the Fox stuff that they picked up in that massive acquisition, you can only watch it on, well, in
Apple
this world,
TV+.
I guess it would be Apple TV Plus. That maybe they fold the Disney brand entirely into Apple TV Plus. Is purely theoretical.
Yeah,
you can only watch it there, and it's like great. That kind of makes sense, I guess. And then they obviously in that case pick up like all the studios worldwide. It's not called Fox Studios anymore. It's called Disney Studios Sydney.
Yeah,
Suddenly Apple now owns like the production studios all over the world, and they can make even better and nicer content.
Yeah,
and that kind of like I guess that kind of makes sense if you.
Well, it's a shortcut to being like one of the biggest producers of content in the world.
Basically, exactly. But then you do have to think like, does Apple want to be in the game of running theme parks worldwide?
Yeah,
running a massive merchandising operation.
With Apple TV Plus and Apple TV in general, they had to go out and hire kind of a bunch of. Apple didn't know how to make TV shows. Like, what do you need to like make a high budget friggin' TV show? They obviously didn't know, so they went out and hired all the executives who knew how to hire all of the like sub executives and blah 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 blah, in order to be able to create all of like the Apple TV shows. This is like a shortcut to having them, but also it's a shortcut where it's like not really built in the Apple image, right? You're buying a business that already has its own cultures and processes and complexities and blah 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 that you're basically giving up a lot of control over your own business when you have like something that massive that you've suddenly got to integrate.